So today we're going to talk about classics that you can finish in a single day. I kept all of these books to less than or around 100 pages so that it's somewhat doable, because if I put a book that's 200 pages, maybe some people don't have that level of dedication or focus, but realistically, if you spend the whole day reading these, you can get these done, and these are books that are going to help you in a myriad of ways. Maybe it's just inspiration, maybe it teaches you something about yourself, maybe it teaches you something about the world, but I think these books are books that need to be read and books that should be read at some point in your life. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the first book. The first book is The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. This is really the book that I tell people to read first by Kafka. You can read his short stories if you want something even less long than this, but I think if you read this and only this by Kafka, you have his entire philosophy, you have his entire writing style, and you understand who Franz Kafka is. That's just how good this book is. Basically, it's the story of a traveling salesman who wakes up as a human beetle hybrid, and how his family adapts to him, and how they change their approach to him, and how they're sort of ashamed of him, and how he feels about himself. And it's, you could take it as a story of just pure H.P. Lovecraftian horror, or you could take it as a story about the decay of ourselves, the decay of our bodies, and our own mortality, and what that means to not just ourselves but other people. Like, how do people view you? Do they love you for who you are? Do they love you for what you do to them? And what happens when we're a burden to somebody instead of being an asset to them? What happens when we can no longer provide for their bills? Do they even love us anymore? And just this mix of themes, and this mix of, such a horrific and grotesque story with such these dark and deep themes. It just adds to Kafka's tremendous style, and you can see what it means when somebody says Kafka-esque. And a tremendous book. It's around 100 pages, and I really think you're going to enjoy it. The next thing we have is Animal Farm. I think Animal Farm is, if you haven't read it, you really need to read it. It's one of those books that I think you're going to read it and you're just going to enjoy it. I don't know a single person that doesn't like Animal Farm. Maybe I haven't looked hard enough, because I'm sure you can find somebody that hates everything about everything. But yeah, it's a great book. Animal Farm, simply put, it's about a farm with animals. And basically the animals take over and they create their own system of government, and it's a socialist government, and it's all great until the pigs start taking too much, and they take more than everyone else, and they start changing the rules, and they start propagandizing people, and they start sort of rewriting the past. And it's really Orwell's attempt to show the downfalls and the pitfalls of socialism. I think it's very important because Orwell was a socialist himself, and he wrote this book after seeing a Soviet gulag and the downfalls that can occur when there's too much centralized power. And it's very interesting because I think it's a great criticism of Orwell's own beliefs. And when you can criticize your own beliefs, I think you get some of the strongest arguments, and I think you can expand your own perspective. And overall, what's just great about this book is you can read this at any age. You could be a child and read this, or you could be an adult and read this and get the same level of enjoyment. And it's very hard to say that about most books. Like, most books you kind of age out of. Like, I'm sure you can read a children's book or a young adult novel and you can somewhat enjoy it, but it doesn't have the same level of maturity as what you'd be looking for. But this has that, and this is just truly a masterpiece. The next thing we have is Anthem. This is by Ayn Rand, and this is deceptively large. It's just because the last half is like her notes and like her original manuscript, but it's really around 80, I think it's around 80 pages, 90 pages. But Anthem is the story about a society where the collective has taken over, and the collective is the only thing that's important, and it's come at the expense of the individual, so that there's not even the word I anymore. And basically the society has collapsed to a almost prehistoric level of technology, and very, very little innovation, and very, very oppressive social structure and social order. There's no social mobility. There's no ability to, change your profession once you're assigned a profession. And it's basically about the story of a man who doesn't necessarily agree with these things and is kind of an outcast, and kind of miraculously discovers light in the form of light bulbs and tries to bring it to the society, and they reject him, so he has to go on his own. And it's a story about returning to the individual, the essential nature of the individual, and how the individual is very important if you want some sort of innovation in society, and how that collectivism is at its extreme very dangerous, and at its extreme very oppressive. And there's something obviously I agree with, because I probably consider myself a what's the word? Why can't I think about it right now? But like, everything about me is focused on the individual, focused on how can I become the best version of myself so I can help others. And I think this very much aligns with my philosophical system. But yeah, I'm a very libertarian person, if you couldn't tell. But yeah, with that said, we'll get into the next book, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is probably the best book on the list. I love this book so much. It's just so good, because it's, one, a great tale, and two, talks to the darkness and the depths of human nature in a way that wasn't quite understood, because Freud and Jung hadn't discovered their findings yet, and they hadn't written about the unconscious and the darks and the darkness and the depth of the human psyche. And it's just interesting to see that, like, these ideas had always been out there. These inklings about the depth and the darkness that is inside all of us has always sort of been understood and been able to put into words. But what Freud did and what Jung did was put it into a clinical setting and put it into a more scientific setting, whereas these ideas were percolating throughout the unconscious, we can say. But yeah, it's a great story, because it's really about what happens when you open yourself up to your darker side. Because there's this big misconception that, actually, I don't want to spoil it. I don't know if because I can spoil it, it's a very interesting point, but I'm going to leave it there, because I feel like if you haven't read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it's going to ruin the story for you, because there's this somewhat reveal, there's this somewhat twist. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it for you guys to figure it out. I'm gonna leave it for you guys. I have made other videos on it, so if you want to just go look at that, I just go find that. But yeah, with that said, here are 4 books that you can finish in a day, and books that are going to help you out. Another book you can finish in a day is the book that I wrote probably about a month ago now. Actually, I didn't write it a month ago. I just compiled it a month ago. But yeah, go ahead, check that out. It's the first link in the description if you're not interested in that. It is what it is. I'm glad you made it this far in the video, and that makes me happy. So yeah, I don't need anything else from you. With that said, I love you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.